Coming up, it's your last chance of the year.
Spiffing up an old bird and tales from a former astronaut.
And some high-flying times in the high desert. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Build and fly with the Sonex Aircraft B models. The B models offer more room and comfort, more fuel, more panel space, more engine choices, and the same great Sonex Aircraft flight characteristics. Learn more at sonexaircraft.com.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
It's your last chance this year, last chance to attend an AOPA fly-in, that is. And Tom Haynes joins us from Tampa, Florida. So Tom, what's happening down there?
Well, hey Melissa, I'm here in sunny Tampa getting ready for our last fly-in of the year presented by Peter O. Knight Airport. This morning, our outreach team is working hard, moving airplanes, setting up displays for a perfect weekend.
So we've got a really great weekend planned here at the Peter O. Knight Airport in Tampa, Florida. On Friday, we've got our all-day workshop seminars that are happening from 9 to 4, an intensive deep dive into some critical areas of aviation learning. Then Friday night, everything opens up. 4 o'clock, the exhibit hall opens, AOPA Village, our Barnstormers party at 6 o'clock with great entertainment in the beautiful environment of the Peter O. Knight Airport with the Tampa skyline in the background. The weather's looking like it's going to be fantastic on Friday and pretty decent on Saturday. So we hope you guys will come out for a great weekend with us.
Plus lots of exhibitors and airplanes on display and much more to do beyond the airport. The Pirate Water Taxi is taking people from the fly-in to downtown. Downtown visitors can stroll along the beautiful Riverwalk to a variety of attractions from the Tampa Museum of Art to the Gasparilla Pirate Ship. And if you're looking for a place to hang out, the Curtis Hickson Waterfront Park offers beautiful views. So whether you venture downtown or stay at Peter O. Knight, it's shaping up to be the ideal way to end the fly-in season. Hope to see you here.
And across the state from Tom, Palm Beach County Park Airport, more commonly known as Lantana. And every time the president visits his Mar-a-Lago resort, Lantana has to shut down. It's within the 10-mile no-fly zone in the presidential TFR. AOPA keeps pushing for some relief, but Secret Service remains dug in. No control tower, no TSA security program, no access. But a little progress. After a lot of talking, some agricultural and banner towing flights will be allowed in the 10 to 30 mile outer ring around Mar-a-Lago. And AOPA keeps on talking to the security types to hope to find some sort of solution for Lantana. And AOPA is working to make sure your voice is heard in the making of new aeronautical charts. Our National Aviation Community Center is hosting the Aeronautical Charting Forum and Instrument Procedures Group this week. This is a group that meets twice a year for the FAA and the industry to discuss anything that impacts instrument flight procedures or charting. AOPA Director of Government Affairs for Airspace and Air Traffic, Rune Duke, says the working group is tackling some important issues.
Today we'll also be talking about changes to off-route obstruction clearance altitudes. So as a pilot, how do you comply with knowing your minimum IFR altitude? As they remove more VORs, more Victor Airways, there's a lot more blank space on the chart. So we have to be able to tell pilots how low you can go.
The forum usually takes place in an office park, and those participating said they are actually really excited to be discussing aviation issues at an airport. Go figure.
And yes, you did hear correctly. A lot of VORs are going away. The FAA is shutting down about 20 VORs a year for the next 3 years, and even more after that. So you're going to be seeing more of these symbols on your charts. The hash marks mean the VOR is no longer operating, but it will stay on the chart until the full decommissioning process is completed. The FAA is scaling back to a minimum operational network that would give you a VOR or ILS approach within 100 miles of where you are in case GPS ever, well, craps out. And they're turning off most of those VORs because, despite what the airlines say, we are rapidly converting all navigation to GPS. GPS, or space-based navigation, is part of the FAA's next-gen modernization program. And yes, the airlines aren't telling the truth about that. A report issued late last week says the FAA is pretty much on schedule with next-gen modernization. It's making significant progress in implementing the 4 top modernization priorities as designated by the Next-Gen Advisory Committee. AOPA is a member of that committee, but the airlines, in their multi-million-dollar campaign to privatize air traffic control, falsely claim that the FAA is behind. Melissa?
But it's actually the airlines who are behind. Well, behind general aviation in equipping with ADS-B out, that is. ADS-B is the next-gen surveillance technology. This modern system is faster and more accurate than radar and transponders. And it's up and running in all air traffic control facilities already. But the airlines aren't equipped for the most part. As of May, only 19% of the commercial airline fleet is equipped. And the airlines ask the FAA for an exemption so that they don't have to meet all of the modernization requirements by the 2020 deadline imposed on GA. So the question, who's really better at running a modernization program? FAA or the folks whose customer computer systems crash on a regular basis? But the airlines are pouring a lot of money into lobbying Congress on their behalf. Almost $3 million in the last 3 months alone. Their top priority? HR 2997, the bill to privatize air traffic control. And they're pouring nearly as much money into a public relations campaign to mislead the public about ATC modernization. The airlines hide behind a supposed grassroots group called Citizens for On-Time Flights, and around Washington, that's what's known as an AstroTurf group.
But hey, general aviation isn't taking it lying down. A private ATC dominated by the airlines would likely push GA out of major airports and ignore small rural airports. AOPA President Mark Baker just wrote this letter to the editor of the Wall Street Journal. He said that ATC privatization might very well be unconstitutional. It would increase the federal deficit by $100 billion, and that's with a B, $100 billion over 10 years. The GAO, the Government Accountability Office, says privatization run by the airlines would likely slow down ATC modernization. And you are a significant part of the fight against privatization. You have contacted Congress more than 150,000 times to say no to HR 2997, the privatization bill. And it's working. The bill's sponsor says it will come to the floor, quote, eventually, which means he still can't muster enough votes in the House to pass privatization. But we can't let up. Keep telling your member of Congress to oppose HR 2997.
And we're working to tell the public and news media too. The general aviation groups fighting air traffic control privatization have just released this new video.
Having flown 4 trips to space, including 2 trips around the moon, I know a little something about flying.
After 50 years of flying, I know aviation.
With 5 airshow championships, I know aviation.
With 269 combat missions and flying with the Thunderbirds for almost 4 years, I know aviation.
Having flown myself to over 100 concerts last year alone, I know aviation.
America is and always has been the world leader in all aspects of aviation and aerospace. The fact is, this is still true today.
We currently have the largest, safest, and most efficient and most diverse air traffic system. Our system is the best and is constantly getting better.
Today, I file flight plans on my mobile phone, fly GPS routes, and use WASP to shoot precision approaches to nearly all airports. Next Gen is happening now.
But on the legislation being considered on Capitol Hill, our aviation system is facing a serious threat.
Washington lobbyists want to privatize air traffic control, taking it away from the FAA, handing control to the largest airlines, giving them the keys to the kingdom.
Perhaps most concerning, decisions would be made according to private interests and not national security and the public good.
You want to give our highway system over to the truckers.
This is a solution in search of a problem.
So now's the time for us to all come together and make our voices heard. We need everyone to go to atcnotforsale.com right now to email, tweet, or call your elected representative.
Tell them to vote no on HR 2997. We want to ensure we modernize our ATC system, not privatize it.
Say no to air traffic control privatization, a threat to our nation's safety, security, access to airspace, and basic fairness.
So please do your part and ensure that we win this important battle.
Please share this video with your friends and family. You can find it at atcnotforsale.com. Former astronaut Jim Lovell was featured in that video, and he's best remembered as the commander of the Apollo 13 mission and the famous phrase, "Houston, we have a problem." He's a fantastic storyteller. He recently told the NBAA convention the story of how he became an astronaut.
So NASA asked the Air Force and the Navy for a certain criteria for test pilots, and I was one of them. I was one of the final 32 that went up to Albuquerque for the physicals. I had my physical with John Glenn, Al Shepard, Deke Slayton. I was the only one to flunk.
What an amazing man. It's really, really special to hear him speak.
Yeah, you did a great job at NBA, really fun to listen to, and as you say, really great storyteller. Well, hey, there's a dignified new memorial at AOPA headquarters. The AOPA Foundation Legacy Wall is a monument to those who have considered the future of flight in their final arrangements. Led by AOPA Foundation Board of Advisors member Ed McNeil, the project has come together over the last few months, and this week there was a dedication of the wall in Legacy Plaza that will be a lasting tribute to those who choose to leave the AOPA Foundation a legacy gift.
And this wall is really our way of being able to say thank you and recognize all of those people who have made such a donation.
The wall is fronted by a seating area that will allow family members to reflect on their loved ones' contributions to the freedom to fly. There are Yoshino cherry trees that will bloom each spring, and a sculpture called Soar will draw visitors into the plaza as they arrive. For information on how to become a legacy donor, contact the AOPA Foundation. And coming up after the break, bringing back luster to that faded old paint.
And a high desert fly-in. AOPA Live this week continues in just a moment.
Breitling, instruments for professionals.
Welcome back. Bad news for some aerospace workers in Albuquerque. One Aviation is reducing its workforce. They're phasing out production of the EA550 Eclipse jet and ramping up for the AEA 700, previously known as Project Canada.
And another aircraft company has completely shut its doors, it appears. Evolution Aircraft sent closure notices to owners of the kit-built turboprop. No one is answering the phones at the Redmond, Oregon company. After a fatal crash and lawsuit last year, the company reportedly had been unable to get liability insurance for continued operations. And Navworks is calling it quits. Avionics manufacturer closed its doors last week. Navworks built an ADS-B transceiver that ran afoul of the FAA because its GPS module didn't meet the agency's requirements. The company said a replacement module from a third party also failed to meet FAA standards.
Looking at the airplanes parked out on the ramp, it's a common sight: faded paint. AOPA technical editor Jill Tallman reviews a product that can help.
My airplane's 20-year-old paint scheme was looking a little tired. The white base coat was dull, and the black and gray accent stripes were flat. Smudges on the right aileron defied any cleaner. AOPA member Jim Hall realized there are a lot of general aviation airplanes out there that look like mine. So he created a product called the Superbird Paint Restoration System to help bring the shine back to aging airplane paint.
You know, you're talking $15,000 is not an uncommon quote for a new paint job. So, you know, that you're talking like half the value of the plane, if not more, in a lot of these cases. So we wanted to create a paint restoration system that brings back a lot of the faded color. It restores the color and the brightness to the paint, and it's a fraction of the price of getting a new paint job.
Hall came to Frederick, Maryland to help me put my airplane through the process.
The system consists of 4 bottles. It's a 4-step process. First step is a spray-on, wipe-off process. The next 3 steps, the paint cleaner, the paint restorer, and the paint sealant. These all require applying with a microfiber towel and then wiping it off. Or ideally, we recommend you use our foam pads with an orbital buffer because you'll get a better, more consistent result.
It's a lot of work, but 2 people working 2 days yielded tangible results. The white base coat was glossy. The previously flat gray accent paint and black stripes now had a depth and shine. The Superbird process can't work miracles. It won't restore missing paint or cover up scratches, and it doesn't make any such claims. But if you're curious about whether your airplane's existing paint can look better, it's worth the elbow grease and the nominal cost to find out. Jill Tolman, AOPA Live.
Looking spiffy. The restoration system starts at $99.99. You can read about it in the November issue of AOPA Pilot magazine.
And finally, it's the most exciting aviation event that you've never heard of. The High Sierra Fly-In is in its 8th year, and this year saw 200 airplanes in the desert north of Reno. AOPA Live's Paul Harrop takes you along for the action.
It's a dry lake bed in the middle of nowhere.
The setting that we have here, we call it the high desert.
Way up in the mountains, out in the desert north of Reno, you'll find the Dead Cow Lake Bed.
She's dry, she's empty, there's just infinite places to go.
Not much lives here except the spirit of adventure and a scorpion or two. But for 1 week a year, this barren land brings together like-minded pilots. From across the West and around the world, they gather.
Came to it 2 years ago and it's been the best experience I've ever had in aviation. Couldn't help but come back for more.
Tim Howes came up from Australia.
Because it's the best flying on Earth.
Dust is stirred by tail wheels and tundra tires, along with anything that can fly and dares to in this environment. The mountains are a playground for the experienced, the lake bed and fly-in family friendly, and the campfire is welcoming to all.
Captivates a lot of folks, it brings a lot of people together.
And together, they watch a new type of flying contest on the playa. STOL Drag is in its 3rd year. 2 airplanes take off at the same time, side by side.
It's a clean start. This is going to be awesome.
And they're getting down and back in 3/4 of a mile, literally, in about a minute, 28 minute, 30 seconds. It's incredible. People think of this concept, STOL drag, man, they're flying around and doing crazy things in the air, and really that's not it. It's down and back. You stop at one end on heading, after the line, turn around, come all the way back, do the same thing. First guy that stops wins. That's STOL drag.
Looks like Mark is slightly ahead. It's going to come down to who gets stopped the soonest. It's a clean finish. It is all coming down to brakes and heading control. Oh! And Mark Patey takes the finals. Mark Patey takes the finals. Our new world champion flying the best Tugs Carbon Cub. Let's hear it for Mark Patey.
I was so close. Oh my gosh, I was dying. Wow. Oh, I didn't think I'd get that tail to drop.
It's just humbling to fly with these guys. I mean, these are the top pilots in the world.
And they're flying their best on some of the most remote land in the country, and an event like no other.
The High Sierra, for me, man, it's turning people on to the coolest days, coolest times of their life, and as long as we keep doing it safe, that's what it's all about.
From the Dead Cow Lake Bed, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
You can see more action from the High Sierra Fly-In on this week's edition of Flyby, powered by AOPA. Look for it on our Facebook page. So Melissa, that's some pretty amazing flying they do out there in the desert.
That is. I don't know about you, but that's definitely my kind of flying. I think I need to put that on my bucket list.
Yeah, I've landed on a dry lake bed before. It's quite an experience. It is so quiet. You walk away from the airplane and you hear nothing. It's quite a way to commune with nature, as a matter of fact.
A little bit different than our fly-in. So is everything set up and ready to go?
Well, not quite yet, but by the time Friday afternoon rolls around, and certainly by Saturday, we'll be all set down here. It's going to be a great event and a good way to wrap up the year, so I look forward to seeing everybody out.
Wonderful, and I think it's a fantastic place and way to end our fly-in season. Tom will be back in Frederick next week, and we hope all of you will be back with us next Thursday for another edition of AOPA Live This Week.
Purchasing your own aircraft is an exciting experience. AOPA Finance simplifies the process, saving you money with lower interest rates and hassle-free loans, so you get into your new aircraft sooner. AOPA Finance, the right approach to buying an aircraft.